With us now from Chicago, Illinois Republican activist Chris Roebling, in D.C., Democratic strategist Zahra Buck. Chris, some interesting language there from Congressman Rush, who suggested, Illinois has sent two African Americans to the U.S. Senate, Carol Moseley Brown and obviously Barack Obama, and that there ought to be an African American in the U.S. Senate. Clearly, there was a racial component to Governor Blagojevich's thinking here.
Well, there's no question, John, that Bobby Rush has added an entire dimension nationally and politically to this appointment by Rod Blagojevich. I think this points up the need for a special election out here. You've got all kinds of people in Illinois saying that the governor should step down. Most of the Democrats said that there should be a special election. They all then went down to Springfield and changed their minds. Now Governor Blagojevich is calling their bluff. I think you heard his own disjunction from reality when he's talking about how he's enjoyed the spotlight over the last couple of weeks. Goodness only knows what that's referring to. Also, the words of Roland Burris, I think, can be used against this appointment. He talked about a crisis in the faith in the leadership affecting the United States and its view globally. There is no question that there is a crisis in the faith of Rod Blagojevich's leadership. And Roland Burris, who is an honorable person, I mean, he's had some ups and downs in Illinois politics, but I'm sort of stunned that he has accepted this appointment. With that having happened, I think that the Democrats in Washington are going to have a very tough time saying no to the Bobby Rushes of the world and to the national constituency that I think Rod and Bobby Rush, Congressman Rush, Governor Blagojevich and Congressman Rush are trying to motivate on this issue now.
Zahra Buck, 2 weeks ago, more than 2 weeks ago, CBS Chicago did a story that suggested that Burris was interested in this seat, and yet he says that he just got the call from the governor's office less than 48 hours ago, Sunday night. I mean, if you were him, would you take this appointment?
Well, let me start by saying, obviously, the events today were pure political theater on behalf of Governor Blagojevich. Unfortunately, this is well within his legal right to do. He's still considered the governor of Illinois, even though he's an embattled governor. He's still the governor of Illinois and has every right to do so.
Should the appointment stand?
Well, I mean, again, as in terms of the legal rights, he has every legal right to appoint. The Illinois legislature adjourned right before the Christmas break, and they didn't strip the rights to appoint from Governor Blagojevich. So he used today his political chit, the last political chit that he had, and he exercised it. And now we are looking at either a constitutional challenge to the Senate Democrats not being willing to seat him, or we are now looking at just political fallout.
But let's say it.
If I can join in here.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you, John. I think you're looking at a variety of things on Blagojevich's side. He's obviously trying to rally some support for himself as he faces the most difficult time of his career. I think it's widely understood here and across the country that he is probably going to prison for a very long time. So he is looking for these chits, as has been said. One of the issues that he has to deal with is stepping out of office. But before he gets to that, he is using this to motivate a constituency, and I think that we saw this with, unfortunately, and of course we in Illinois are very embarrassed by this whole travesty, but we saw that with George Ryan. I think that he is reaching out to a constituency with an eye towards the jury pool that might be impaneled should he decide to go to trial.
You're talking about when Governor Ryan commuted the sentences of death row inmates just before leaving office.
I think that Governor Blagojevich is widely understood today to be reaching out to any constituency he can, and this has certainly complicated a trial for him.
Zahra,
Governor Blagojevich has definitely recognized that the African American voting bloc is the most powerful voting bloc in Illinois, and so does he recognize that there needs to be an African American in the Senate? Yes, he does, as well as other Senate Democrats, as well as even House Democrats. They've all acknowledged that.
Zahra, do state Democrats regret not pushing for a special election?
Well, I mean, who's going to pay for it? I mean, the state of Illinois, the taxpayers would then have to bear the burden. And the question is, in these economic times, do they have the ability to do that?
All right. We're going to have to leave it there. Chris Roebling and Zahra Buck, thanks very much. We're going to be back with more coverage of the turmoil that just continues to grow in Illinois politics. The governor there, Rod Blagojevich, has nominated someone to fill Barack Obama's Senate seat. The question is, will he get to accept it? Let's get back to Chicago, Illinois, Republican activist Chris Roebling, and from D.C. Democratic strategist Zahra Buck. Zahra, just before the break, I was asking, should there have been a special election? Democrats at first suggested they wanted to go that route to fill the empty Senate seat. Then they backed away for it, apparently fearing that there would be some political advantage in it for Republicans. Now you've got this situation. How much of an embarrassment is this to Illinois Democrats?
Well, the reality is that a special election has to be paid for by the taxpayers, and there's no indication that there is the stomach or the appetite by the taxpayers to pay for such a special election. So at this point, it's up to both the Illinois legislature as well as the U.S. Senate Democrats to work out some type of agreement and come to some type of common ground on this issue.
What about the people of the state of Illinois, though?
The people of the state of Illinois, they have, I don't think that it's necessary for them to take the burden of paying for a special election. In these economic times, that has to be the primary consideration.
All right, Chris, what do you think about that? It was supposed to cost, what, $100 million or something?
Oh, it's not going to cost. I'm a former election commissioner. It won't cost anywhere close to $100 million. And with all respect to Zahra, I want to say the people of the state of Illinois, if you look at the Tribune website or the Sun-Times website, the reaction to what Governor Blagojevich did today, turning a tragedy into a travesty, they are dying for a special election. All of the Democrats, starting with Dick Durbin, who you just heard from Roland Burris, is sort of an elder statesman of all Democrats in Illinois, were for a special election until they got down to Springfield and started talking to each other. The people of Illinois deserve to choose their representation in the United States Senate, and they shouldn't have to be saddled with someone who is under a taint. Roland Burris should be one of the candidates. There's nothing stopping him from going out and taking his resume, his list of achievements to the people of the state of Illinois and saying, hey, send me down to Washington. At least that way, the whole Senate seat would be removed from the Blagojevich corruption taint.
Zahra, he does have a list of achievements, as I mentioned, former state attorney general, former state controller, but he's also a pretty big-time contributor to Rod Blagojevich's campaigns. We heard $14,000, maybe $20,000 contributed over the years, and he didn't really seem to know the number in his head. How does he avoid the smell of a potential taint here?
Well, that's something that he's going to have to work out with his attorneys and politically as well. But just to say that he's given contributions to Governor Blagojevich, there's no indication, as we have seen so far, that there was a pay-to-play or anything like that. It has been shown through Congressman Rush's endorsement. By the way, Congressman Rush's endorsement is major in Chicago. He's a highly respected congressman and looked upon as an elder in Illinois politics. So I think that his endorsement goes a long way. But also, just to say that he has contributed to Governor Blagojevich does not indicate that there's any type of scandal afoot.
But did it seem, Chris, a little bit too clever when Mr. Burris looks out in the audience and says, oh, I think I see Congressman Rush out there. Congressman, why don't you come up and say a few words?
Yeah, it almost seemed nonchalant, but we'll find out later what was really going on there. When Roland Burris was Attorney General, and make no mistake, he is a historic figure in the state of Illinois, the first African-American elected statewide, and he deserves a lot of credit for his service, and I give him that fully. When he was Attorney General, a very significant percentage of his contracts went to people who had contributed to his campaigns. Now he is contributing to Blagojevich, and in return, he is also receiving some business. That's not the whole story of Roland Burris. It's an element. Unfortunately, that tends to bring him into the Blagojevich craziness. And what we have in Illinois, unfortunately, is this governor, who has bedeviled his Democratic counterparts down in Springfield for the last 7 years, is now bedeviling national politics.
All right.
And you have got a real problem there.
Chris Roebling, Zahra Buck, we have to say goodbye. Reaction from the Obama camp next.